So this week I've been thinking about how can I create a life of liberty, happiness, freedom for real, not for fake, for real.
No, did the world treat you bad?
And I appreciate the way that my mind works is because when I curate these honest questions, when I sit with myself and I think through if I'm experiencing true happiness, if I'm experiencing true freedom, the algorithm of the world and the algorithm of life, and even the algorithm of the Bible sends me in the right direction. So today I want to create with you all. I want to create a draft again based on this idea of the fear of freedom. So last time I did a video, I went through some chapters in Exodus, and I have to continue through some of these verses because when I thought about the fear of freedom, I also thought about how Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Pharaoh's heart was hardened, like it was hardened, like someone supposedly hardened Pharaoh's heart. And I had to question, for what reason would you harden Pharaoh's heart? And I have this question because after you read about the Israelites coming through Egypt and now having this provision, their response seems logical to me. I used to be in survival mode. Survival mode. Okay. I used to be in survival mode, right? They were just in Egypt, making bricks without straw. Making bricks without straw. And now it's like, oh, you don't have to do that anymore. Be comfortable with freedom. Be comfortable with this safety.
Get well soon. We want you to get well. Get well soon. We want you to get well.
And I think that it's fair to ask some questions. So I'm going to go through some of those questions with you all. But I'm also going to scan through some verses, some TikToks, and I'm going to lead you in the direction that I want to go to with all the things I'm going to put in today's video. Ideally, at the very end of this, I am going to form my article about freedom. And in that article, I want to not only think about how we fear freedom, but I also want to think about what we do with freedom once we get it. How do we imagine what that freedom looks like? Because some of this conversation came from an experience I had this week, and I felt it in my body. I said, I'm making bricks without straw right now. But I didn't think that I was a slave in making bricks without straw. I felt restricted. Like there's something around me that dictated what type of experience I could have for myself. And I did not have the knowledge or the insight in order to see how I can get out of it. So I put it all into 3 sections when I started thinking about it. I put it all into 3 sections. One, the first section is, hey, you live in an environment and you're given this environment and there's nothing that you can do about it. You either change your perception, change your perspective, your mindset in order to survive that environment, or you keep a perspective that makes it heavier and you still have to survive that environment. So the choice would be, hey, I'm going to change my perspective. Even though I'm in this environment that's heavy for me and there's no changes, there's no support, I'm making bricks without straw, I'm just going to be happy. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be fantastic, right? So I had to challenge myself to be honest. When I say that I am happy, am I really? Yeah, honestly, for the most part, when I'm not and I'm irritated, I express it. I'm irritated. And this expression that I do with my family and I do through writing highlighted itself this week as well, because I was trying to figure out how is it that I do sincerely do like it. I like the earth experience. I like some of the things that feel uncomfortable because I end up being able to create something out of it, or a new thought or idea, or just a conversation with someone because of all of these things collectively happening. And it's not like I wouldn't want a life that has less friction, but it is something to the texture that I experience in life. But I'm ready to just change that a little bit. So the second batch is consider somebody, the best way I can describe it is consider someone who used to be in poverty and they end up getting some education. That education allowed them to get some income, and now they have options. The options they have are still pre-packaged, but they have options. Let's say they went to go buy a house. And instead of building a house from the ground up and having the kitchen the way they wanted, or the windows or the land that they wanted, they get to now choose from maybe 10 or 12 options that gets closer to what they want, but they still have to choose from these options. And that seems better. It seems better than having to just change my mindset and look for the good in a world that seems confusing. But I am dedicated and I am attached to that mindset particularly. I'm calling it the law of Danny if you haven't been here before, which means everything that can go right will go right. And that practice is thinking on the good and looking through theories to help me stay there, because otherwise I'm not sure of the tools and resources that support that theory. And if I was to lay down and just go with the flow and say that life is hard and this sucks and it doesn't matter, there's no solutions, then that's wasting time. I imagine that in order for me to at least get something, to extract something, I should try to think on the good and look for the good. So I'm staying with that mindset, but I have to be open to the fact that what if two things can exist at the same time? What if I can think on the good in my mindset, but also be in the situation that's created for me that I enjoy, that I like, and I won't? Okay. Which leads me to the third part. Okay. This third part is the creator. Dear creators. Okay. The creator, where I am now involved in my decision making in my life, my mindset as well. But it's not like I just have options. I get to create what it is that I want. But you want to know why I brought in Pharaoh's hardened heart and the fear of freedom? Is because this last option, where you are creating what you want, also means you might not have stability. And also means that you might embark on territory where there's no direction. And you may also not even get what you want from it. So this week, well, actually, it was last week. Where are the week? Where are the weeks? Sometime in this lifetime, I went through an exercise that I want to do more of. I love doing street interviews where I go up to strangers and I just want to talk to them. I usually have a question. I'm going to learn about their lives. This particular segment was about a scenario I gave to my children, and they had such a great conversation. Like the ideas that they brought out of this conversation was so inspirational that I thought, hey, this must have been a really good question. This must have been an excellent question. Look at the children engaging like this. Oh, engagement. But but the children probably had the best conversation because they were thrilled. I think because it was a street interview, it was like on the spot. It was like you get this random question, so people responded very like, yes or no type. But I'm going to share a few of those with you. Anyway, the question was about two different scenarios. The life that you have an option to choose. The life that you have an option to choose. Two different scenarios. One scenario is you live in a world where every time someone interacts with you, they are honest with you. The thing about living in this world is that they're honest with you doesn't necessarily mean that they're harsh with you. They're just truly, sincerely honest. And you know that. You have the opportunity in this world to find your sincere people who truly like who you are, but it's not guaranteed that you will. It's just a possibility. In the other world, Everyone that you engages with, everyone that engages with you are fake and dishonest. However, they bend to your needs, your desires, and wants. And you know this. You know that everyone that you interact with for the rest of your life will be fake. However, you get your desires, wants, and needs. So the underlying question is, what do you sincerely want when you think about the life that you want to live? Do you want it to be a place where you just get your desires and wants satisfied? Or do you just want honesty? And most people, you'll see in what I share, chose the honesty answer. Who wants to live in a world of lies? But it's a very, very mushy place because as my children went through the debate, I started to realize that there are different angles to your desire, wants, and needs. Like if you were to choose a life with your desire, wants, and need, would it be horrible? And one of my children brought up the fact that some of the life that we live right now already exhibits that we already have people being fake, but you just don't know it. So I wonder what you all think. I wonder what reality that you would choose. But let's take a look at what some others on the streets of where I live in the United States of America said.
Hi, my name is Udaya Vakati. I'm from India.
What society do you choose and why?
I would choose the first one because when there is honesty, I feel like there's scope to grow. But you have to be in an environment where you see a mirror where like you can be good or bad, but you need that mirror, you need that honesty where there's scope for you to grow. So I would choose the first one.
Is this coming from any values or is there any story in your life that helps you support this answer or motivates and inspires you here?
Yes, I have been a person or I have grown up seeing my dad or mom being like extremely honest, and they don't like, they're not nice, they're kind, but they're honest too. I see a small difference between kindness and niceness. Niceness, it's not honest. So that's my value, to be honest, no matter what. Obviously, you don't have to be rude to be honest, but still, that's my value system.
Which reality would you choose and why?
My name is Shannon, the second one.
Why?
Because I don't want fake people around me. I'd rather somebody be honest and not like me.
I am Caroline, and I don't like this. I want like honesty, but not necessarily like brutal honesty all the time, which is technically not one of my options. So I think I would go with honesty. I'd rather be honest than constantly be wondering if it was honest or not.
It doesn't have to be brutal, honestly. It's just that everyone in this world is honest. So it could be that they're nice when they're honest.
Yeah, I would go with honesty. I do believe that sometimes just because something is honest doesn't necessarily means it needs to be said in every situation, but I'd rather that than like it be constantly not true and always wondering. So I'd go with honest.
Thank you so much. That's it.
Oh, I don't like the liar because I believe in telling the truth no matter how hard it is. It's best telling the truth because then you don't have to make up stories when you get caught telling a lie. There was some story where the dog or the wolf, somebody was always called fire, fire, and it was a fake alarm. So some people believed him for a while, but then they thought he was lying. So when the real fire came, they wouldn't help put it out because they didn't believe him. Always tell the truth. And from an 83-year-old person,
Oh, wow.
that is what I try to go by.
I'm Ola, first one.
Why?
I have a bunch of people that cater to my needs. I mean, I get what I want. So, yeah.
I'm somewhere in the middle where it's you need some stability because you will have responsibilities. And so if much is given to you, that much required might be you sacrificing your needs, wants, and desires, and you caring about the needs and desires of other people. But for someone who truly doesn't want to have to answer to someone, there's this level of freedom that lacks structure And so you're free and there's no structure. And so therefore you like, hey, I don't want to do any of this. I just want to live and be free. You're free, but you don't have any security because you live in a world where everyone else don't believe in your same mentality. They actually think that you are lazy and that you owe them something. You need to perform. Perform, boy, perform. Speaking of perform, boy, perform. The next video, because I can't put it all in one, but the next video is going to be about an article I want to write that's called, Are You a Good Boy?
Why are you the way that you are?
Even though I'm a woman, I'm a lady, it's Are You a Good Boy? But it's going to tie into this topic too. About people wanting you to perform and that your value comes if you do something that makes them satisfied. But how long does that really live? You make someone happy and they say, oh, you're good at basketball. I love the way you shoot. I love the way you talk. I love the way you dance. And then they leave and you're just go live your life. Do we really want to impress people, or do we want to just be truly happy? And what does that look like? So now let's go through this with another arrow, because I know I might be taking y'all different places. If we truly want to go to a place where we're happy, it could be something like, what if for the rest of my life, I don't want to have to perform or please people by this thing that makes me valuable, this good thing that makes me valuable? What if I just truly like making art? What if I truly like making conversation? What if I truly like what I do and I love the fact that people are happy that they get to witness it, but I'm also happy and I'm fulfilled? What are those things? What are the things that fit in that category? Because if you are living your life just to have other people see you, and then when they see you, what is it to that? And I had to pause here and be gentle, because there are parts of this earth experience where I love it. I love the friction. I like I love the sun. I love the interactions. And there's some times where I don't want to interact, but I have to interact, or I don't want to do something. I want to say no. But if I really said my true, honest no, the outcome would be freedom, but also without security, without structure. So can I be my complete honest self, which is one of the things that I want to accomplish in this world, is to be able to be my complete honest self, which also could be against what someone else needs from me, right? But anyway, in this last section, it's really about understanding what freedom would look like, and if there's structure to true freedom, that there can be structure and support, but now it's dependent on you putting that together and maybe even fumbling or falling and not having all the pieces together. And is that truly what you want? What you want support? What you want to live in a society where everything is given to you? When I was thinking through this, I was writing and I came across this passage. I'm actually just going to share it on the screen and I'll go through it as I talk. But the idea here is there's this scientist that talked about those who overcame trauma or was successful in overcoming trauma didn't need therapy. They didn't need some type of pill. They just wrote. And when I read this, I was inspired. I was like, oh, yes, like that's what I'm doing. I'm writing with people. I'm writing with myself. And I imagine that the reason why I had experiences that could be labeled as traumatic and I'm still like, okay, like, is because I'm writing, but I'm also honest with my writing. I'm honest with my questions. And I hope that I can share a space where people can start thinking about doing the same for themselves and see where it lands to. And where it consistently lands for me is the more I'm honest, the more I write, the more I get closer to something that feels true. And even through the investigating, it seems like it's not going to land, but I feel it land, even if it's just a little at a time. I feel it landing.
Oh, okay, hon.
And so I like this idea that this professor drew out. Although there's more about his work that I would question, that I would want to dig deeper into. The idea of expressing through writing matched my reality. And I say this because it's in my content, it seems like I'm thinking a lot about religion. I'm talking a lot about religion. Someone just the other day said, I like your stuff. It's a lot of religion. And I was just like, oh, snaps, this is not doing what I wanted to do. Because I did not want this to be all about religion. I want it to be about beliefs in every angle. So I am talking about the beliefs about racism. Like, where does that come from? The beliefs about money. Like, where does that come from? The beliefs about leadership and what makes someone superior. Like, where do those come from? And as I bring more people on the Earth Experience podcast, I hope that I can make that more full and more known. But I needed to face the fact that the foundation of a lot of this was because of the hold that religious trauma can have on a person. And I had to recreate that for myself. I'm not at the same place where I'm just listening to someone talk to me about the Bible. I need to go in and I need to present those questions to know how I truly believe those experiences. And going through that process, honestly, is what I enjoy. It's alive and it's honest, because if I was dishonest, I would stay where I was when I left the Bible and I threw it out of my life and say, I don't trust anything and there's nothing that's good in this world. But that would be dishonest. That would be my hurt dictating the truth. I imagine that honestly looking for myself, presenting questions for myself, is more honest than me just thinking, oh, just throw away the bath with the body. Throw away the baby with the bath. Throwing away the baby with the bathwater. Yes. Throwing away the baby with the bathwater. I still don't think that's right, but y'all know what it is. It's the ideas and thoughts that we make up in the world. I'm gonna create a new one. It's throw the baby with all her stuff. Okay. Now, what I appreciate about the honesty here is that it creates an opportunity for me to, I'm going to use the word create again. So don't, for me to create, it creates an opportunity for me to create something that is meaningful for me. And I like that for myself. And I like that for others. It's very easy to live in this world, especially in what it feels like now, and to think,
finally, someone normal.
Okay, right? Like nothing is going right and all the things are bad and all the things are wrong. However, there's this actually, let's play this. There's this TikTok that I came about. And although I'm not necessarily thinking of the same concept that he is, from this TikTok, I thought, I am going to do something that is major and big. Even if it's for my own world and it's true, I am going to do this big thing. But let me share this with y'all, and then I'll share what that big thing is, which I probably already did many times, but let's watch this really quick.
I watched a YouTube video recently that altered the course of my life forever, and I'm not exaggerating. This was the biggest mindset shift I've ever experienced in my life, so I want to share it with you now because I don't want you to miss out on literal decades of your dream life. So basically, what they described is we've been setting goals wrong our entire life, and what we need to do is set an impossible goal. It's not going to be easy, but it is very simple. So I guess let me rewind a little bit. Most people set realistic, logical, or linear goals for themselves. And the problem is this: when you set a logical goal, it doesn't force you to transform into a greater version of yourself. And if the current version of you knew how to get yourself to your dream life, you'd already be living the dream, but you're not. So you can't set a goal for something you already know how to do. You have to set a goal so big that it forces you to grow your capacity. So a logical goal would say, I made 50,000 last year. I'm going to try to make 55 or 60,000 this year, right? That's realistic. But an impossible goal would say, I made 50,000 last year. I'm going to try to make 30 million this year. And that sounds crazy, but what you have to understand is your brain will justify whatever premise you give it. So if you ask yourself, how do I go to 30 million from where I'm at right now? Now you are only focused on ways to grow exponentially instead of the many different ways there are to grow incrementally. And exponential increase is the only way you should be thinking anyway. Because if you desire to be a millionaire one day, why are you wasting your time, effort, and energy looking for all these different ways to make the jump from 50 to 55,000? It's obsolete. When you set an impossible goal, you realize how much of what you've been doing is absolutely meaningless to your dream life. The second way you can set an impossible goal, like I mentioned earlier, you can take an existing goal and collapse the timeline. And this is honestly probably the biggest thing I've learned in the past year or two. If you give yourself too long to accomplish a goal, you will never reach that goal because it justifies laziness and it justifies poor decision making. So for example, if I told myself I want to be a millionaire 20 years from now, I can afford to take days off right now because I still have over 19 years to get there. Versus if I said, I want to be a millionaire by this time next year. Now I have no time to waste. I might have to change my habits. I might have to change my friend group once again. I'm going to have to transform into a greater version of myself. I won't be able to cover everything I want to in this video, so I might have to do a part 2. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop a follow. My name is Zach. This is Net Worth. Have a blessed night.
So let's pull out a quote here. Set realistic, logical, and linear goals for yourself. So setting those type of goals, it's easy to do. So when we have like, I want to make 100K, I want to make 200K, and you set those goals, seems very easy to do, logical goals. Now, if you say, I want to live for a living, if you say, I want to truly be happy, I want to sincerely experience love, I want life, liberty, freedom, and happiness, I want to accomplish true peace. Those to me, underneath the law of Danny, seems like it is impossible when you live in a world with conflicting ideas around that.
One day in the distant future, things will be calm and normal, right?
Probably not.
Like, that's just how life is. Or it's supposed to be hard and people are going to be this way. So how do I accomplish such a large goal like that if it requires people who exist in the world to also cooperate? And the funny thing about it is I feel like I experience it because sometimes I am in my own world. And I wonder if there's some reality or truth to the fact that you can be in your own world really as you exist in other worlds. Because I'll hear stories from people and I'm surprised, like there are people who still exist like that. It's like, I know that it happens, but it feels like it's so far away that I don't believe it's really happening until someone says it's happening to them, and then I'm surprised. And I'm thankful for that. I'm telling you, I'm thankful to be in my own world because it reminds me of the scenario I said where people could be lying, but you get to benefit from your wants, needs, and desires. And I imagine that even if you are honest with yourself in that world, you won't be able to dictate whether people are lying to you or not. You can only dictate who you decide to be, which is honest with the fact that everyone around you could be deciding a reality for themselves that is harder than you want to choose for yourself. But it's going to take me back to Exodus, y'all. I want to read this passage in Exodus with you all because it made sense that the children of Israel would be confused and uncomfortable with this new provision, with this new freedom. Okay, so first I'm going to read from Exodus 14, 10 through 13. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord and said to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Were there not enough graves in Egypt?" For real. People are saying that today, right? It's like, this kind of reminds me of when people say, why would I bring, I don't know if it really matches, but hear me out. When people say, why would I bring a child into this world? It's already evil. Why would I do that? It's like, was it not enough for you to bring us through that, have us witness that you could do all this magic but not support us, or magic or miracles, I don't know, we're still working on it. But is it not enough that you could do all those things, but it's the last resort for you to save us and preserve us? We have to go through that first and then remedy our way through it. As if that didn't happen, that trauma is going to be there. So then he says, they say, why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Were there not enough graves in Egypt? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Did we not say to you in Egypt, leave us alone and let us serve the Egyptians? Hold on 1 second. I gotta finish this because I can feel it coming through my body. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses answered the people, do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring to you today. Now, remember the 3 buckets that I tried to get through? Hopefully y'all can see those buckets on the screen somewhere. The bucket is, you can be in this reality or this experience where it feels safer to be a slave. It feels safer to be restricted because there's structure and there's support. And so you have to feel that first to know what you're going to do with it. Am I going to just maintain this reality and say this is good enough for me? Or would I say I'm going to do something different even though it's uncomfortable? And those questions it's not like, oh, this is the happier version. Like when everyone was answering the question, it was like, oh, just be honest. It's like, but if I'm living in this world, wouldn't I want to have my needs, desires, and wants? Or because I need, desire, and want something, I can't have it? Now, there's another conversation to that, right? There's wisdom in these needs and wants and desires. You could want and desire something, and it still puts you in a pit, right? But if I was to be mature with the needs, desires, or wants, or my needs and desires and wants did not put other people in harm, and it did allow me to live life peacefully, what does that look like? And how do I get to it? And why is it restricted? And why there's so many things around it, right? So here's some questions I want to consider from this passage. So considering that the Israelites just were freed and their first response when things got hard was to say they would rather have stayed a slave, when the open road looks more dangerous than a cage, what does that tell us about how long captivity can reshape what we call safety? Or here's another one. How do you hold onto a promise when you can physically see the problem? And then is there a difference between standing firm in your faith or standing still because of fear? And how does someone really know that it's different? This is a really good question because it appears that there are a group of people in the world that know exactly what they want. They know exactly what they are. They know exactly how to live life. And they figured it out. And then there are people who are like, I'm just going to go off of what anybody tells me. And then there are people who are like, wait a second. I think I should know. I should do some discovery. I should do some investigating. I should know to make sure that this is true instead of me just going by default. And I think there's a fair group of people that exists. But here's what happened next, okay? So I'll read this passage really quick, and then I'm going to pull out some more questions, and I want to bring this home eventually. So now we have later, and you'll have to read the whole passage to get the full story, but I want to bring these 2 points together. So in Exodus 16:2-4, and then 16-8 is what I want to read. In the wilderness, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into the desert to starve the entire assembly to death. Then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. Moses also said, you will know it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against them. Okay, this is where we talk about the fear of freedom. Because now it's like, you can have what you want. And they're like, but I mean, it's a lot going on right now. We don't feel comfortable with that. This is what we know. This is what we experience. So how are we supposed to naturally adapt? Is that supposed to be a new heart and a new mind that's placed on us so that we can realistically do so? It feels like to me, and anyone who's an expert and want to add texture to this, But it feels like to me here that we are not being considerate of the fact that people just don't jump out of trauma overnight. Let's say your conditions are that you make $2 an hour and you live in paycheck to paycheck and you die. And then the next day you're making $1 million. But in your $2 condition, you were worn out. You were stressing. You were fearing. You were trying to make things happen in your world. And those became a part of your body. They became a part of your rhythm. And now you make this $1 million. It might seem like you would automatically just feel free. I think you would feel a level of freedom. But the patterns that have been built over time, they could show up or surface in this $1 million case. So that doesn't mean that we don't want freedom. It doesn't mean that we don't want the $1 million case. I think when we rewind all the way to the beginning, when there's supposedly power in the space with when Pharaoh and Moses was going back and forth with their tricks and all the things, and also adding on the layer that God was hardening Pharaoh's heart, it just seems like they're like, have a conversation. Let's talk about it. Part of me talking about the Bible is not in the strain of talking against it. It really is. There's so many discussions that we can have that are influenced by the Bible that causes us to think thoroughly together. And I see the Bible as a place where it does encourage you to question. It encourages you to have so many questions, but then to also think through, like, does that seem like it would be that way? Does that seem like a lie, or does that seem like a truth? Because would it honestly come down to something like that? And when we look at the patterns of life, what does that say about that particular situation? And we all get into the group together and we think through it and we're like, oh, yes, you can achieve life, liberty, and happiness, right? That's my big dream from that first video. My big dream is that what if life, liberty, and happiness is a real thing and you can achieve it? Now, I'm not going to go through all of these things, but I'm going to sit here with my last thought, and that is dreaming in the right direction. If you don't take anything from today's experience with me, I want you to dream in the right direction. And when I say the right direction, starting off with honesty, starting off with like how you really feel about your everyday experience. When I started this channel, I did have the trauma of religion, but it wasn't just religion. When I sit back at all the topics that I'm interested in or the topics that trigger me, it is also the way that we think about money, the way that we interact with people, the idea of the identity, the all trying to make sense of this world is the big trauma. But in this piece that I want to illustrate, I want to rework the idea of trigger, because in the discussions that I'm going to have with you all moving forward and all these assignments, there are going to be pieces of content that trigger you, that trigger me. And most of them going to be me because I'm going to be bringing it to y'all, but you understand. But what I mean by trigger is that it can trigger inspiration as well. It can trigger a thought. It can trigger something emotionally within you, which is the clue that you should investigate that. When I thought through like how I wanted to come on this YouTube channel, it was because when I looked at all of the content online and people had their commentary and they were talking about people, it was always one-sided. And I hope to be somewhere in the balance where we can look at the perspectives from both angles, right? But then also at the end of the conversation, why did that why did that particular content stand out to you? Why are you upset about it? Why does it ramble you up? Why does it make you raw? Okay? Or why did that make you smile? And ultimately, I will want us to land into content that makes us smile, to make us think, that inspires us to write. But it might be on this route of journey of understanding that some of this stuff triggers us, and we probably should take those 20 minutes to write out exactly the narrative that the doctor who I presented earlier discussed in his work. What if that's one of the solutions of getting closer to creating a life? And maybe it will be part of this life where it might feel better for us to be supported. But you understanding and knowing that about yourself is what I hope we can practice together here. But I'm going to leave you with whatever I ended up with in my Substack. And before we go, I would love for any essays, for any questions, for you to even go ahead and answer the question to that quiz. I hope that I can use that content in future content about us addressing our triggers. But I'm reworking the word trigger. I want this piece to rework the word trigger. I want to work on thinking about Pharaoh's heart and why it needed to be hardened, to question through those things. And then also look at those 3 brackets of realities. And it could be multiple. And maybe you add in another perspective in the comments below will be helpful. Say something in the comments below. Why did I do that? That's the thing I see on TV when people do it. And I was like doing it to you.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way. I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
The freedom signal theory. What people call a trigger is sometimes a sign that something enemy has made contact with pressure. A trigger can come from memory, fear, grief, insecurity, ego, or pain. It can also come from recognition. Recognition that something feels forced. Recognition that a covering has conditions. Recognition that support is beginning to sound like demand. Recognition that my agency feels touched, cornered, or quietly priced. A trigger may not be the full truth. A trigger does not always point to danger. A trigger does not always point to immaturity. Sometimes a trigger is the soul asking for a more honest reading of the room. It may still carry information worth examining. Some signals reveal wounds. Some reveal pride. Some reveal unmet hunger. Some reveal places where I have confused survival with safety. Some reveal where my freedom feels threatened before I have found the words for why. This is why I want to rename some triggers as freedom signals. A freedom signal is the inner flare that rises when something in me senses the cost of staying silent, agreeable, useful, or easy to manage. It is a response that asks for investigation. It asks me to look closer. What exactly felt restrictive? What did I fear losing? What kind of covering was being offered? Was I resisting growth or recognizing control? Was I avoiding discomfort or was something in me refusing to disappear? The signal itself is not the final answer. It may be the beginning of one. Some discomfort comes with growth. Some discomfort comes from grief. Some discomfort rises when self notices that the room has no space for it to know. Wisdom is learning the difference.
Until next time, hold on to you as much as you can into your health, your well-being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.
Breathe.